Well, well, well. Hello, everybody. My name is Brandon Knapp, and I want to welcome you to my first of more likely three story or character X male reader videos. I suppose is what I'm calling these because these ones are based off of I think mainly female characters, and it's basing off of like the person who you are most likely were reacting as or reading as is the person like you the male reader. So yeah, so this first one is one of is one about Asuna from Sword Online, ex male reader. So yeah, I am with all of these. I am doing making myself as the character, of course, for like the male character, one of the male characters, of course. So, anyways, here we go. And fair warning, I'm probably not going to try to speak in a female, voice because I don't want to do it every time. So I'm just going to read it as normal, I guess. No point of view. It has been a year since Kirito ended Sword Art Online by clearing the last floor with his in-game wife, Asuna. You were trapped there too, and as a result became close friends with Asuna before she met Kirito. You had feelings for her, but when she got with Kirito, you just accepted it. They left the floor you were on to advance without telling you in person. Asuna did message you to tell you though, which you were thankful for. Once that madness was ended, you entered physical therapy like all the others, and today was your first week at a new school where survivors of SAO seem to go. My point of view. Man, I'm damn tired. That therapy is kicking my ass. I'll just say. But today may be good since I'm starting out at the new school. I got my uniform and everything. Though I did add a certain ribbon to my belt loop. I wonder how she's doing. It's been a year since we were freed, and I haven't seen or heard from her since. I shake my head at the thought and keep moving forward. I wonder if any of the other survivors have nightmares. I walk to the classroom and knock accordingly. They seem to be watching something, so the teacher pauses the movie, and most of the students take the opportunity to stretch out. The teacher opens the doors and I present the papers to her, and she reads them over. Miss Akira. Ah, I knew you were going to be a bit late since you had to pick everything up, Mr. Knapp. I'm Miss Akira. Please come in. Miss Akira said to me as she stepped aside. I bowed respectfully and entered the room. Many students are looking at me right now. Class, this is our new student, Brandon Knapp. Hold on. He just transferred from another high school since he had to move. He, like many of you, is a survivor of SAO, aka Sora Online. Mr. Cure stated with authority. Many of the class started whispering, but a few I see give me a look of understanding. Now, anything you want to add, young man? Mr. Cure asked me as she turned to me. I think for a moment, me, I just hope, sigh, I just hope everyone is all right after all of that. I said, not really looking at anyone. I can see the teacher gave me a small look of concern, but she nods. She points to a seat next to a girl with small pigtails, black hair, and glasses. I sit down carefully and place my bag beside me. The teacher asks Rika, the girl next to me, to share her notes on the movie so I'm not lost. Thanks, I said quietly as the movie started back up. I quickly skimmed through the notes before taking a look around. My eyes landed on a girl with long orange hair, pale skin, and amber eyes. My eyes widened. Asuna. Time skip. It was now lunchtime, but to be honest, I'm half tempted not to go. One reason is because I'm bound to be asked many questions. The other is Asuna will be there. Seeing her again after all this time, I'm not even sure if she'd remember me, but I am going to lunch because I want to see if she does. So here I am in the lunchroom, looking around, and there she is with her headphones smiling as she speaks to her friends. Kirito's nowhere to be seen, though, which is odd. I take a deep breath and walk over to her. I reach to tap her shoulder, but hesitate for a moment. It takes a moment to find my resolve and tap her shoulder. She turns and smiles at me. Hey, you're that new kid, right? Asuna asked me kindly. I feel my smile fade a bit at the question. She seems to know since her face turned into one concern. Are you okay? Asuna asked me, with concern. I just thinned my lips before speaking. You don't remember me? I said a bit sadly. Asuna tilts her head at me before taking a closer look at me. I then hear her gasp before I see her stand. I then get pulled into a tight hug, which takes me by complete surprise. Slightly annoying. Oh my god, it's you, she said very happily. She pulled away and then looked at me, smiling wide. Brandon Knapp's Extreme. I missed you, Asuna said happily. I smiled and hugged her back. I didn't think you remembered me, I said as I happily hugged her. She merely laughed a bit and pulled away. She has me sit next to her as her friends watch the two of us. How could I forget my best friend? Austin asked me, smiling. I chuckle a bit, but her smile fades as she looks a little regretful. I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye in person. I wanted to, but we were in a rush. Austin said sadly. I looked at her and saw the regret in her face. I smiled and hugged her once more. It's okay, Asuna. I'm just happy you remember me. I said happily. Asuna breathed out in relief and hugged me back before we get eating. she just smiled at me when she looked at me as we went, and I felt old feelings welling up again. Damn it, Hart, you know she's taken, so stop that right now. Of course I would. I'm just glad you made it out. I was so worried since I never got to hear from you again. Asuna said to me kindly. She then hugged me gently, which I returned happily. I'm glad you made it through. Uh, I knew you would. You made it, though. I knew you would make it through. I said, smiling. And she pulled back and tilted her head in a cute way. You were so strong, compassionate by the time you met Kirito. I knew you'd make it. I said to her kindly. Asuna gets a dusting of pink on her cheeks before giggling a bit. Thanks, Brandon. You're just as kind as I remember, Asuna said happily. I nodded my head and we began chatting as we started eating our lunch with our friends. We talked all through lunch. So Kirito never joined us despite the fact that Asuna confirmed that he went to the same school. She assumed he was busy since he had to work on a project, which I guess could be true. I bet he's on the roof. We spent the entire time catching up as much as we could. We talked about our lives, was happened since we were let out of that hellhole. After school was over and we were all headed home, I ended up asking Austin something. Do you get nightmares about the whole ordeal? I mean, I asked a bit worriedly. Asuna stops walking and looks at me with the concern. I do after you and Kirito left. I was ambushed by a player killer guild. They wanted my weapon. Excuse me, Guardian Soul. They were players too, I explained sadly as I stood there. I can see Austin giving me a sad look. I have nightmares about that day. I almost killed someone. They were real, Asuna, and I nearly killed them, I explained, shake my head to myself. We stand there in silence for a moment before I feel someone grab my hand gently, look to see Austin giving me a sympathetic look. You didn't kill them, though, Austin said to me kindly. I just sigh and she smiles a small bit at me. I do have bad memories from that time, but being with my friends helps me a lot. If you ever have one of those nightmares again, please don't feel afraid to tell me. I know I never I know I left you alone when I left. Austin said, looking to the side with shame. She then looked back at me with a small, soft look on her face. but I still care about you. I want to help you if you let me. Asuna said to me kindly. I look at her and swear I can see a twinkle in her eye. But but what really amplifies her beauty is how the sun is reflecting on off her face. I then just smile and nod to her. I will. Thank you, Asuna. Thanks for being such a good friend. Even after all this time, I said smiling. Asuna giggled and hugged me, which I happily returned. I relished in the feeling before she pulled back and we began walking home once more. She smiles the entire. Excuse me. Smiles the entire time we talk, and I can't help but smile back. It's just how I remember, which only makes my old feelings come back more and more. It's been a couple of months since I got reunited with Asuna. Heck, I even saw Kirito and Silica at that time, or as their actual names go, Kirigaya and Ayano, respectively. Excuse me. Huh. Now that I think about it, Asuna was the only one who used her actual name in some way. However, Asuna had been telling me that Kirito has been distancing himself from her for some himself from Asuna for some reason. He won't tell her what is wrong, and she's really worried about him. I wonder what's bothering him. Is he having issues with the memories, or no? He wouldn't. He's not that kind of guy, is he? I mean, sure, he didn't care all that much when Asuna met him at SAO, but surely he's gotten over that. Who knows? Uh, Maybe it's something else. I'm sitting in my room since it was the weekend. I haven't touched any video games short of normal console stuff since SAO, and even then, it's very limited. It just brings back too many memories, and I can't handle it for too long. I do see that Austin is playing a new game of some sort, of some kind. I haven't bothered memorizing the title, the name, or anything, so I have no intentions on playing it. I have no intentions on playing it. Um, I was reading some story online when I heard my messenger go off. I look at it and see Austin has asked me if I can come over. I tell her I can get up to get ready to do so. Once I am ready, I tell my mom I'm going out before starting the short trek to Austin's house. Once I get there, I knock on the door and once I hear a muffled voice say come in, I do. I walk in and see Asta crying. I rush over to her and kneel in front of her. Asuna, what happened? I asked a tad frantically. She said nothing, but lunged at me and hugged me tightly with her arms around my neck as she sobbed into my shoulder. I hugged her back and repositioned myself so she can rest against me as I kneel on the floor. I rub her back. What happened? I asked Asuna softly. She pulled back, sniffling as tears continued to fall down her face. I discovered Kirito kissing another girl. Asuna said shakily, for breaking down into tears again. I go wide eyed at the new information and hold her tighter. No, no way! I'm so sorry. I whispered to Asuna as I held her. She just continued to sob into my shoulder as I sat there and tried to process the information. I didn't think Kirito would be capable of something so terrible. Why? Why would he do that to Asuna? I want to ask, but I want to comfort Asuna more. I just hold her and run my fingers through her long hair to try and help her calm down. It seems to work as her sobs lessen more and more until she's. Okay, sorry. Until she's So she's now just crying a bit. I then swallow a lump in my throat since I'm unsure if should ask her anything. You don't have to tell me, but did he explain himself, or do I need to go and get an explanation? I said a tad angrier than I meant to. I still pull back. And sat on the couch. I sat next to her, and she just kept looking at her lap. He said I was cheating on him with you. Asuna said as she looked at me sadly. I go wide eyed at that. Why was I why this happened? Let me tell you the whole story. Asuna said as she tried to relax. I listened to her intently. I know Enrica had told me they saw Kirito around here somewhere, but he's been so distant lately, and I wanted to ask him why, but he just waved it off. So I intend to ask him exactly what is wrong so we can fix it together. Okay. They said he was at the food court, so I need to. I placed a hand over her mouth as tears well up my eyes. There he was, the man I loved and the man I thought loved me, kissing another girl. I have to fight back the tears so I can confront him. As I to confront him, I slowly make my way to him, trying to keep myself calm. Once I am close enough, he looks at me but doesn't seem all that worried. Why? Why would you do this? I thought you loved me, I said, trying not to break down. I still simply cannot believe this. Why? Had I done something wrong? I await his reply, but I got something else first. He merely frowned at me before speaking up. I thought you loved me, but you spent so much time with the other kid, Brandon, right? Kirito asked me flatly. I don't understand. Does he think that I'm seeing him behind my back? The way you look at him, even when you're with me, Kirito said with a hint of hurt in his voice. More tears come from my eyes as I shake my head at him. He's my best friend, and unlike you or me, he still gets nightmares about all the times he was nearly killed in SAO. Of course, I try to make sure he's happy. I would never cheat on you. Did I ever give you reason to think otherwise until my best friend came back into my life? I asked angrily with tears flowing down my face. Oh shit. Oh god damn it, I have a headache. Okay, I'm gonna skip a little bit. Uh, um Austin began crying again, though this time she just leaned into my chest. I have to take some time to comprehend what she just told me. I did this just because she's my best friend. He did that to her? Why? I never flirted with her. Yes, I may really like her, if not love her, but I would never make moves on a taken person. That's dishonorable. Did he think that little of me or her? Maybe he just has low self esteem. Either way, he's ruined the relationship and it cannot be fixed. So I just sit here holding the girl I love as she lives at all of her sorrows. I told her, or I hold her and press her tightly against my chest as she cries, rubbing her back and resting my chin on her head. I'm so sorry, Asuna. From what you told me, you two seem so happy, I said apologetically in a soft tone. She merely whimpers against me. I want to help, but I don't finish as I do not know what to say to her. I just reside, holding her a tad tighter to comfort her further. I begin to think and come up with an idea. Hey, Asuna, I Hey, Asuna, I said quietly to her. She looks up at me with her red eyes. I know I'm no black swordsman, but if you ever need anything, just tell me, okay? I asked her with a kind smile. She sniffles and begins looking at me. You've been such a good friend since we met again, and I want to be the same to you. Hold on, shit, I might just misread that. Yeah, and I want to be the same to you. Said softly. I said, smiling kindly with soft eyes. She pulled back a bit and wiped her eyes. Okay, thank you.
Asuna said, sounding happier. She hugged me. Uh, she, she she hugged me fully and sniffled once more. I guess we'll be able to hang out more. Austin said a bit sadly. I know it's not the idea of spending time with me, but the reason she's sad about it is why we can. I rub her back. He was an idiot, Asuna. He knew better, yet he did it anyway. Don't blame yourself. You're a wonderful person. And he just couldn't see that due to his jealousy, I said comfortingly. She sighed against me, but didn't pull away. I know you loved him. The way you looked at him when the three of us went to the arcade was proof enough. You two went inside as I stayed outside, but still, I said with a small chuckle. I see Austin smile a bit at that since she had since pulled back. But things happened. I'm here for you. That's what friends do, right? I said kindly to Asuna. She smiled and giggled a bit, but nodded her head yes. Uh, yeah, that's what we do, Asuna said, smiling through the tears. I smiled more uh, help and helped her wipe them away. Can you stay here for a bit? I don't feel like going out, Austin asked me, looking down. I leaned back on the couch and nodded my head. I'll be here all night if you need. I said kindly. She looked at me and smiled, and she then sat next to me, and we just watched some stupid videos on YouTube to pass the time. I knew some funny ones that would easily make her laugh, so I pulled up the best ones and had her watch text to speech dog source and watched as she totally lost it watching the dog bark. In quotes. I sat there laughing with her. I smiled as she kept giggling at what she just watched. I'll be here to help you, Asuna. I promise. Time skip. It's been about 2 weeks, maybe a little less, since Kirito and I ended things. He tried contacting me to apologize, but I ignored the the attempts. He didn't trust me enough to have another guy friend, so why bother? I frowned at the thought. I've been getting over him slowly, but it still hurts. Brennan has been a huge help to me, though. He doesn't let me mope around and takes me places, carnivals, the mall, and anything else he thinks will make me happy. I really appreciate it, to be honest, and it makes me feel so cared for. Yeah, cared for. Right now, I'm waiting in the food court at the mall for Brandon and smiling to myself. Up until I see someone sit across from me. I look up thinking it's Brandon, but gain a surprised look seeing it's Kirito. I frowned at him and was about to get up, but he said something. Please, just sit so we can talk this out, Kirito said, sounding very upset. I'm half tempted not to, but I sigh and sit back, down, and cross my arms. Be quick, I'm expecting a friend, I said, a bit sourly. He flinches at my tone, but nods his head before placing his elbows on the table, leaning forward a bit. I messed up. No, scratch that. I caused a disaster that made us break up, and I'm sorry, Kirito said sadly as he looked down. I look at him, waiting for him to continue. Look, I still care for you. I know what I did was horrible, but all I'm asking for is a chance. Please, Kirito asked, looking at me with sad eyes. I'm actually surprised at what he's asking. He accuses me of cheating and proceeds to get back at me by kissing another girl. I see Brandon approaching the table and he seems worried for me, but I look back at Kirito. You accuse me of cheating, proceed to get back at me by kissing another girl, and then expect me to try a relationship with you again. I may be able to forgive you for what you did at some point, but uh but we can never be together again. You didn't trust me despite all that I've done for you, so the answer is no. We can be friends once I'm able to move past this, but we cannot be together again. It would just happen again. Or am I wrong? I asked Kirito seriously. He didn't answer. Look, you messed up. These are the consequences. I don't resent you, but I don't want to go through that a second time, I said as I looked at Brandon, who was standing at earshot for my privacy's sake. Well, worth a shot. I do hope we can be at least friends again, Kirito said as he looked at me a tad hopeful. Through the sadness, his rejection he just received is still there. I smile a small bit. In time we can be. My friend is here, so I have to go, I said as I stood up. He did as well, and I patted his shoulder. Just give it time, I said with a small smile. He nodded before looking at who was waiting. When he sees Brandon, he looks away in shame. Maybe you should make peace with him too. He's been helping me through my sad spell since. I said, not really wanting to say it since it still hurts to think about. Kirito, to my surprise, agrees, and we both approach Brandon. Brandon is frowning a bit, but it's more out of worry, I think. I assumed the worst of you, and I'm sorry. I should have known better, Kirito said, looking down. Brandon seems surprised at this and looks at me. I nod to him, telling him it's genuine, and he then looks at Kirito. Brandon placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, and Kirito looked at him. You know, despite the nightmares I have on occasion, there was a saying I heard that I think fits this. Uh, Brandon said to him calmly. Kirito and I both look at him with curiosity. Each of us is the architect of our own actions, and we must suffer the consequences alone. Either they be glorious or tragic, Brandon said calmly. That actually surprises me. It does fit here. You had no reason to think I would take her away, but it happened. I forgive you, but I'm not the one you wronged. Brandon said as he looked at me. I smiled a bit, but I looked at Kirito. He nodded in understanding before looking back at me. I'll do whatever it takes to make up for this. I promise. Kirito said with conviction. I smiled at him, and he smiles back before walking away from me. Brandon. I watched him walk off before looking at Brandon, who was smiling too. He meant he meant it, I think. He's not a bad guy, just foolish sometimes, Brandon said with a chuckle. I then smile and hug him and suddenly and he takes a step back to catch himself. Huh? What's up? Not that I'm complaining, Brandon said happily. I giggle a bit and pull back and smile at him. You were amazing. I expected, I don't know, a lecture and insults, but you were so mature. I said with a bit of admiration that made Brandon blush a tad, but he smiles nevertheless. What? Don't you get compliments? I asked him jokingly, but to my surprise, he shook his head. No, no, not really. I don't fish for them, which makes that more apparent. But most people don't bother, no matter what I do. Brandon said calmly. Well, that's dumb. But at least he's not upset about it. I'll be sure to compliment you more then. I said happily. He smiled more at that, and we both sat down. I already ordered for us. I hope you still love Brandon. Still love Brandon, I said, smiling. He nodded his head happily and smiled more. Good. That would have been awkward, I said, shaking my head. He merely chuckled. The fact he thought to buy me any food means a lot to me. As is, I would have eaten it regardless, Brand said, smiling. I look at him and the way he's looking at me in a soft way. I begin to see how cute he looks in his way. That gentle smile and the way his eyes are looking at me merely makes me falter, but I just wave him off. Aw, thanks, I said happily. He smiled more. We then heard a laugh, and we both looked over to see some fellow survivors talking. Brandon seems to listen in, and I do as well, or try to. From where I am, it's kind of hard, but Brandon, as he listens, seems to close his eyes for some reason. He then shakes his head, but seems to stare at the table blankly. I see his eyes twitching about. He's remembering something. I need to pull him out of that memory now. I grab both of his hands with mine and squeeze them gently. He then blinks a few times and then looks at me. They were talking about SIO, weren't they? I asked Brandon kindly. He looked away and nodded his head. It's so stupid, isn't it? My happy-go-lucky demeanor is broken by a conversation about what happened, he said, shaking his head at himself. I frowned at that and reached up to smack him upside the head. He looks at me surprised, and I'm frowning at him. It's not stupid. You can't help what's wrong with you. What happened to you hurt you greatly, so it's natural to feel like that when you hear about that stuff. It's not stupid, and neither are you, I said with authority. He seemed surprised by my tone. I never want to hear you say that again, I said seriously. He still seems surprised, but he slowly smiles and looks down. Thanks, Asuna. I'll try, Brandon said, looking at me a bit happier. I smiled at, but he continued, your compassion. I'm glad to see you never lost it, Brandon said gently to me. I blushed a bit at his tone, but smiled nevertheless. Yeah, I hung on to it as tightly as I could. I said happily. He chuckled at that. The food then arrives, and we get eating. Oh, that's before you spend the day together. We chatted as we ate. Well, I chatted and he listened mostly. He's such a good listener and always has some advice when I have a problem. That day, he came to me and showed me that much. After we ate, the two of us began rocking around the mall together. He didn't really intend on buying anything, but he wanted to just wanted to hang out with me, which is awfully nice. We went to many stores to just window shop, but when I came to the game store, he waited outside. He told me that ever since SAO video games has made him uneasy. I went inside, though I did promise to hurry for his sake. I walked in and saw many wonderful things, but something that caught my eye was a plushie from that console game, Kingdom Hearts. It's a Shadow, I think. I know Brandon said he was a fan before SAO happened, but so maybe I can get it for him. It's on sale, and with my membership, it won't cost me but $10, which is sweet. I grabbed it, and something I want, and I pressed the color. Nice to see you, Asuna, the clerk said to me happily. I smiled back at him. He takes my items from me. He rings them up, but he stops when he sees Brandon standing outside. Huh, isn't the other way around where the girl's waiting outside? The clerk teased with a wink. He means nothing by it. I know, but he should know this. He's a good friend of mine, actually. He survived SAO like me. Unlike me, though, it affected him greatly, so video games make him uneasy, though he said he's working through that. I said, smiling uh, out at the boy. The clerk gave a nod of understanding as he rang up the plushie. He also scanned my membership card. Makes sense. Anyway, how are you and Kirito doing? The clerk asked me kindly. I don't know how to tell him that we broke up, but he continues. You guys were really happy the last time I saw you two. The clerk said happily again. I can feel the tears swell up behind my eyes. I didn't want to be reminded of that here. I just stand out there motionless as the clerk gives me a look of concern. I am still waiting for Austin outside, but I'm starting to wonder what's taking so long. I peek through the window and see Austin standing at the counter looking stunned. I know exactly what had happened. I rushed inside, ignoring my own discomfort to go take care of Asuna. I walk in and grab her shoulder. She looks at me and I thin my lips for having her hug me. I look at the clerk and take the bag. I just asked her how she and Kirito were doing, the clerk says with a bit of regret in his voice. I sigh a bit and shake my head as I rub Asuna's back. Kirito did something foolish and it hurt Asuna, I explained, partially since I didn't want to divulge everything that happened. He nodded his head and looked down. You couldn't have known. Kirito apologized, but it still hurts, as you can imagine, I said as I pulled Asuna back to look at her. Want to go home? I asked her kindly. She nodded her head and I smiled before rubbing her arms gently. Let's go home then, I said kindly. I looked at the clerk and nodded to him before leaving with a bag in one hand and my arm around Asuna's shoulders. I said nothing as we walked back, since I don't want her to break down in public. I know she'd hate that. Once we get to her house, I sit her on the couch. Her parents aren't home right now. They had to go out of town for a few days, meeting at work, I think. Can't remember. I placed the bag in her room before going back to the couch. I sit down and hold my arms open for her, and she falls against me. I see the tears crawl down her face, though she does not sob. That's an improvement at least. I just held her for a while. Despite the fact you can forgive him at some point, it still hurts, I said calmly to her. She sniffled and nodded her head at that. Makes sense, like you told me. This stuff affects you deeply. I'm here though, Asuna. I'm here, I said to her gently. I see her smile a bit through the tears, though she does continue to just sit there with me. I just continue rubbing her back, but then get an idea. Hey, you remember I was a bard, right? I asked Asuna kindly. She nodded and looked at me. Want me to sing? That wasn't fake in SAO, I said, smiling kindly. She looked a bit surprised, but smiled a bit. If you don't mind, I would like that, Asuna said to me kindly. I nodded, and she leaned back against me once more. Just sing what you want. I'm sure it'll be nice no matter what you choose, Asuna said to me a bit weakly. I then began racking my brain for a song I know she'd like. I then smile as I pick one. Okay, I have one I think you'll love, I said, smiling kindly. She nodded and I cleared my throat. When you walk away, you don't hear me say, please, oh baby, don't go. Simple clean is the way you're making me feel tonight. It's hard to let it go. I sang to her softly. I see her eyes widen at my song choice. I know the words may affect her a bit, but that's the point. You're giving me too many things. Lately, you're all I need. Oh, you smiled at me and said, "Don't get me wrong, I love you, but does that mean I have to meet your father? When we are older, you'll understand what I meant when I said no. I don't think life is quite that simple." I messed it up really bad. I sang softly as she rested against me. I see her contemplating the words. I tighten my grip on her a bit. When you walk away, you don't hear me say, "Oh, baby, don't go. Simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight. It's hard to let it go." I sang once more through, though this time I kept going. The daily things like this and what, that keeps us all busy, all confusing me. That's when you came to me and said, wish I could prove I love you, but does that mean we have to walk on water?" When we are older, you'll understand. It's enough when I say so, and maybe some things are that simple. I paused there to gauge her reaction. I can see her bittersweet smile as she processes the words. I decided to end the song there and loosen my hold on her. That's not the whole song, but I thought might like it, I said, smiling at her. She looked up and hugged me. I did. I really did. Asuna said happily, though there are still hints of sadness in her voice, which is to be expected. "Kyoto didn't hear me say come back. You chose that song on purpose, didn't you?" Asuna asked after she pulled away from me. I nodded, confirming it did. I did. It fit. I'll give you that, Asuna said with a weak giggle. I patted her head as she wiped her eyes. She then smiled gently at me, and I stopped petting her head. She didn't hug me gently. "Thank you for everything," she whispered in my ear. I hugged her back, smiling. "You're such a good friend and a person," Asuna said it to me kindly. I chuckled as she pulled away again. "Thanks. It's what friends do, right? Like when you came to my house that night when I had another nightmare. How you convinced, uh, how you convinced your parents to let me come over to your house alone. I will never know," I said, chuckling at the thought. Asuna giggled a bit. What surprised me even more is when they saw me again. They asked if I was all right. "I suppose I see where your compassion comes from," I said, smiling. She nodded her head, and we sat there for a time. "Do you think?" Austin seems to delay what she wants to say. "Do you think that he still loves me?" Austin asked me, sounding unsure. I sighed deeply and looked at her. She's not looking at me, but I can see her wanting a response from me. "I do, but also know that you know he broke. I also know he broke the trust you shared." I said honestly to her. She frowned more, but nodded her head. "It is natural to wonder about that kind of thing, but you should ask yourself a question: Can I trust? Can I trust him fully to be with him once more in time? I'm sure you would, but right now, no. Heck, by the time that trust is rebuilt, he or you may have moved on. When a door closes, you shouldn't try to force it open again. It may hurt," I said to her calmly. I can see the hurt in her face, but I know she needed to hear it. She sighed deeply and nodded her head in understanding. "Doesn't mean he won't be part of your life. I mean, heck, I came back over a year after you had to leave me, and I'm part of your life still. So even if you can't be a couple again, I can promise you'll be the best of friends," I said reassuringly as I swung my arm over her shoulder. She smiled a bit at that and then nodded. "You're right. Again," she said, shaking her head, which made me chuckle. "Sure, we may be never be able to be together again, but we can still be friends. We can we can be friends still," Asuna said, sounding happier at the thought. She then looked at me with a curious look. "Have you ever, been in love or something like that? You seem to know a lot of good advice about it." Asuna asked me kindly. I look away a bit. "I was in love once, but it couldn't work out." I tried to be honest, but not saying why. She looked at me sad and asked something I really wish she wouldn't ask. What do you mean? Why wouldn't it work out?" Asuna asked me with concern. I don't want to tell her I was. No, I am in love with her, but I can't lie to her. A half truth then? I then felt someone make I then felt someone make me turn. I see Asuna looking at me with concern. "You can tell me," Asuna said, trying to reassure me. I sigh and go with the half truth. "She fell in love with someone else a long time ago. It sucked, but she was happy, it seemed, so I just smiled as they went about their ways." I said, smiling a bit sadly. I wanted to tell her, but I didn't. "It sucks, but I'm all right." I looked at Asuna with a smile. The look of concern doesn't leave her face. I sigh. I'll admit it hurts. It hit me harder than I expected it to, as I watched her walk away with her boyfriend. But what can I do? She is happy, and which should be enough for me, right? I asked Asuna. She keeps giving me that look of concern before speaking. It's okay to be upset, and you loved her, and if she couldn't see that way, then she was a fool. You're such a great guy, Brandon. So it's okay to be upset, like I am now. Asuna said, frowning a bit. Uh, but at least we still have our best friends, right? Asuna asked me, smiling. I look at her and smile. Sure, I can't be with her right now, but I know she'll always be there for me. Yeah, you're right, I said happily. She giggled and hugged me. I hugged back again happily. I guess we're both feeling better now. She pulled back and we decided to try and do much happier things than moping around. I may be able to date her, but I am more than happy to have her in my life. Though I do feel bad for something. I wonder now if there's a chance for me to be with her. It's been a few months since me and Kirito broke up, and thanks to Brandon, I am completely over it. Though I do feel different when I am around him now. Nervous for one thing and flustered is another. I only felt like this with Kirito. Iono keeps teasing me that I have a crush on Brandon, and I think that it may be right or wrong. I don't know. I am currently walking to Brandon's house so we can study together, but I end up seeing Kirito running up to me. I smile and wave at him, and he waves back, but he seems nervous. Hold on. Hey Kirito, how are you? I ask him happily. He smiles, but I see the nervous look in his eyes. What's eating at him, I wonder. He takes a breath before speaking. I'm good, Asuna. I hope you're alright too. Kirito replied with a smile. I nodded and he smiled before looking a bit nervous again. I have a question, Kirito said nervously. I tilted my head at him, but what he asked was what I was not expecting. Do you want to go out with me again? To try again? Kirito asked me nervously. I am taken aback by this. How do I respond to that? I mean, I am over him as of now. I look down and sigh. Kirito, I knew this was coming, I said, shaking my head. I looked at him with a more serious face. The answer was no, Kirito, I thought. As Brandon helped me through my sadness, that that I would be love to be with you again. But as time went on, I knew that wasn't true. You hurt me badly, and I don't want to go through that again. I said seriously to him. Kirito looked shocked before looking down. He then looked back at me. So that's it then. All that time together and it's over. He said. I'm willing to fix this, Asuna. Is that not enough? Kirito asked me with hurt in his voice. I sigh again and shake my head at him. Nope, that's not going to work. I played this exact conversation in my head 1,000 times. Kirito. If we got back together, we'd end up breaking up again. You didn't trust me, so how can I expect you to trust me this time? I want to remain your friend, but if we get together again, it would break that friendship completely. I said to Kirito seriously. Um, he looked away before his eyes seemed to widen and he looked at me. It's Brandon, isn't it? You love him, don't you? Kirito asked me seriously. I go wide eyed at the accusation and he sighs deeply. That's exactly it. What has he done that I haven't done to make you love him instead? Kirito asked me in a slightly upset tone. I know doesn't hate Brandon or me, but he's just upset at me rejecting him once more. Then look at him with a small glare. One thing he's never done is betray my trust. What if I love him? Why is that a problem? Asked Kirito seriously. He still looks upset through his harder look from before. Though his harder look from before vanishes entirely, and is replaced by a sad one. Just answer the question. Do you love him? Kirito asked me. Once more, though it was a bit more far softer than before. I guess he just wants confirmation. Uh, do I? Well, I'm not. I stop myself though to think as I think back to all the things Brandon has done for me over the time I have known him. All those nights in SAO where he comforted me when we learned we were trapped. Him helping me grind through those few levels. How he saved me from dying to our first boss. How he held me in when Kirito cheated on me. How he gave me so much advice over the past few months. How he makes me smile, how he makes me flustered when he says something nice about me. I realize now that I was a fool. I do love him. I do love him, I said, sounding a bit overwhelmed at my realization. Kirito looked surprised. He was there for me before I met you in SAO and helped me along those early days. He stayed right by my side when I broke down after finding out what you did, and he even stayed all night with me. I do love him, I said, smiling fondly at that thought. At the thought, after all this time I've known him, I do love him. I just hope he loves me too. Kirito sighs and looks at me. Well, he stops to take a big sigh. He then smiles a small bit at me. At least he's a good guy. I learned that when we became friends again, Kirito said, shaking his head. You should go tell him and make sure he doesn't screw up like me. Kirito said to me a bit sadly. He then smiles more and hugs me. I hug back and look at him once he pulls away. Go on, go get your man, Kirito said, sounding a bit happier. I giggled and nodded before I start running to Brandon's house. I don't pay much attention to my surrounding as I run straight to Brandon's. Once I'm there, I knock on the door quickly, and I don't have to wait too long. Brandon answers the door and smiles at me. Asuna, Brandon said as he hugged me. I blush and hug him back. He lets me inside, and I am surprised to see some takeout on the table, on his coffee table. I thought you might be hungry, Brandon said, blushing a bit. I smile and hug him once more. That's so thoughtful of you. Like I should expect something different from someone so kind, I said to him happily. He blushed, more smiling as we sat down. He reached for some food, but I stopped him. I need to tell you something before we eat, I said as I felt the nervousness build up. He nodded and I readied myself for this confession I'm about to give. I sit there patiently as Austin seems to try and gather herself before saying anything. She then nods herself before looking at me with her amber eyes. You've been such a good friend since we met in SAO, always standing by me, even after I left you behind. I don't know what I've done to deserve you, Austin said to me. Her eyes seem to be brimming with an emotion I can't quite place yet. I place my hand in hers, and she seems to blush. You were there for me for everything, the early days of SAO, and when Kirito cheated on me. I've come to realize something, Asuna said nervously. She begins mumbling over her words so I gently squeeze her hand to try and help her. It's okay, Asuna, just take all the time you need, I said kindly to her. She seemed to blush a bit at that. Maybe it was the soft tone I use. She just sits there for a minute, staring into my eyes with that same emotion from before, which is hard for me to discern. She seems to make a small noise in her throat. I get worried. Asuna, are you? I don't get to finish as Asuna did something I only hoped she would do. She slammed her lips onto mine, taking me by utter surprise. I can feel her lips quivering against mine out of being nervous, and that blush on her face tells me the same. Her eyes are closed rather tightly, again, likely from nervousness. Her quivering stops though when I close my eyes and push back on her lips with my own. I feel her arms go around my neck as the kiss continues. Never in my life did would I think that the woman I loved would kiss me like this. She was in love once before. After all, we stayed that way, kissing one another for a time after my hands rested against her sides. We had to pull away to breathe. However, as we were panting, we were staring at one another, and I know that was the emotion in her eyes, and her what that emotion in her eyes was love. I smile warmly at her, and she smiles back before kissing me again. This one, unlike before, is short, sweet, and full of love. When we pull away, I swear I'm on the verge of tears. You love me? I asked in near disbelief. Asuna nods happily, and I smile wider. Oh my god, I love you too. I always did, even when you were Kirito. I just wanted you to be happy, I said. I laughed a bit, and Asuna giggled and kissed my cheek. That girl you were talking about was me? Asuna asked me kindly. I nodded and she smiled lovingly at me. And you never said anything because you wanted me to be happy? You really are a wonderful friend, or should I say boyfriend? Asuna asked me with hope. I kissed her on the lips once more before nodding my head. Yes, nothing would make me happier. You're so compassionate and sweet, and not to mention beautiful. How could I say no? I asked Asuna happily. She smiled and hugged me tightly for a moment. She then gasped and pulled back. Oh, I got you something. Well, I got it a few months back, but I forgot to give it to you since I was upset. Asuna said to me happily. Uh, I tilt my head as she goes through her bag. She then smiles as she pulls out a shadow plushie. I smile wide at it as she gives it to me. I take it back and smile at it. Makes it even better since the sequel got its release window, right? Asuna asked me happily. I nod and place the plushie beside me. I hug her and she hugs me right back. I love you, Asuna said to me with love. I now let the damn tears fall as I hug her tighter. I love you too, Asuna. I always have and always will. I promise. I said to her with love. She giggled and pulled back only to kiss me again. One of many to come, I hope. Excuse me. We stayed together for the rest of the day. After eating lunch, we did our homework as planned, but we cuddled the entire time we did. Once we were done, we cuddled as we watched movies together, with the occasional kisses thrown in. The woman I love, who fell for someone else, now loves me. I can scarcely believe, but here it is. Her heart was broken, and now it is fixed, and she chose me to give it to. I will take care of Asuna, I swear. I swear I will. So that's the end of this story of Asuna X Male Reader, and I want to give credit and thank Silver Zero Wisp on DeviantArt for creating and possibly giving themselves carpal tunnel for writing all that. So thank you, Silver Zero Wisp. I hope you continue to make great stories like that. And also, I have two other ones that you created that I'm gonna do a voice reading for. So hope if you find my channel, hope you tune into that. But thank you all for. I hope you all enjoyed the reading. I will try to put a link to the story, so if you want to go read it for yourself, you can. And yeah, I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and see you later.